Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Nitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast.
Hello there from Bedford. How are you all? Did you all have a great weekend? I'm back home now, back home for 10 days and getting ready for the launch of Defiance. Anyway, welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, which is brought to you by the mighty Kraken, the best place to buy and sell Bitcoin. And on today's show, I am joined by Trace Mayer again, but this time I've got him on his own to discuss claiming your monetary sovereignty with Bitcoin. But before that, I do have a message from my show sponsors. And remember, don't skip this. If you enjoy the show, it is the sponsors that allow me to do this. So firstly, today's show is brought to you by my good friends at BlockFi. And another month is over, so I'm going to be getting another interest payment from my Bitcoin interest account. Super cool, always exciting. And they've had so many cool updates with their interest accounts recently. So BlockFi firstly dropped all minimum deposits. Interest account holding clients will no longer have to meet a minimum deposit amount in their Bitcoin, Ether, or GUSD to earn interest. Additionally, BlockFi has removed the early withdrawal penalty from their account and is now offering one free withdrawal per month to all clients. And with the recent announcement of BlockFi Flex, you can choose to receive your interest payments in the currency of your choice. With BlockFi interest accounts, you can earn interest every month on your Bitcoin, ETH, and GUSD. So you're interested in finding out more? I suggest you do your own research, then head over to blockfi.com, which is BLOCKFI.com. Also, today's show is brought to you by the mighty Kraken, the most trusted place and the safest place to buy and sell Bitcoin. And as I announced last week, they're also going to be sponsoring my new podcast, Defiance. So I continue to build a great relationship, love them and love the team. And if you're a trader, they've got your backs. They've got everything you could possibly need. They've got Kraken.com, which is the best place to buy, sell, and trade digital currencies. They offer margin trading with up to 5x leverage. They've got futures. They've got indices. They have got the Kraken OTC desk for large trades with private and personalized services. They've also got Crypto Watch, where you can trade multiple exchanges from a single platform. And for you advanced traders out there, they have without doubt the best account management service in the business. If you're a trader, there is no better place to trade than Kraken. So join me in supporting them and head over to kraken.com, which is KRAKEN.com. Okay, so onto the show. And for a second time in a week, I've got Trace Mayer. It was great to get Trace on the other day with Caitlin and Tyler, which if you haven't listened to, I recommend you checking out. It was a monster show, but I did also get some time with Trace on his own to record a show. And with Trace, he is the self-proclaimed Babe Ruth of Bitcoin shills. He's also a massive gold bug, so naturally the conversation turned to safe haven assets and hedging against a global recession. We also discussed putting your health before your wealth and the annual Proof of Keys event, which he did at the start of this year on January the 3rd, and I'll be covering with him again next year. Trace is super bullish. It's always good to get a good bit of hopium. So I hope you enjoy this. If you've got any feedback, you can hit me up on hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Also, got a couple of notices. The first 3 shows for Defiance are ready. Hopefully, it'll be launching this Sunday if Apple approves the show. The interviews I'm going live with, episode 1 is going to be Alex Gladstein from the Human Rights Foundation discussing why we defy, essentially the Defiance Manifesto. I've also got Tae Yong-ho, North Korea's most senior defector, and the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, Brittany Kaiser. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. As I said, hopefully that will be out on Sunday. Also, I'm here in Bedford. I'm going to be here until October the 9th. I'm then going to be heading out to Ohio on the 10th for the Drop Bid event. From there, I'm going to be heading to Portland for my first time, followed by San Francisco. I'll then be in LA for a few days around CIS on October the 15th. From there, I'm going to be heading to Austin and then to New York for the Human Rights Freedom Forum on October the 23rd. So October is going to be busy. If you're in any of those cities, feel free to give me a shout. And also, if you've got any questions about the show, hit me up on hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Morning, Trace.
Yeah, good morning. Great to be here.
Second time in 3 days.
That's true. You're eking out every drop out of me.
What do you want to talk about?
I heard about this like Bitcoin thing. A
Yeah.
little bit of magic internet money. We're going to talk about that.
I heard it's not real. It's going to go to zero. And there's this better one called, is it Bitcoin Cash?
Bcash?
Bcash?
Yeah. No, I wrote an article back in, I think it's 2014 on whether Bitcoin is tangible. Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not real. And this was a gold bug argument, right? And, coming out of the gold bug space, it's interesting, the etymology on the word tangible. It actually comes out of mathematics, and it's related to the word tangent, which means to kiss, when you take the tangent on like off a circle or something, and it means reality, right? So like mathematics isn't corporeal, but it's still tangible. It's still real. So I made that argument that Bitcoin is real, but not corporeal, doesn't have the physical tangibility, but it still has the reality tangibility. So my little contribution to monetary science there.
People still get sucked into it, though. And we've seen it again with BSV. People just get sucked in.
Yeah, they get sucked in all types of stuff. But, you can't, if your brain doesn't work right, you better fix that.
Yeah. All right. I do want to talk about something. I want to talk about monetary sovereignty. That's your... That's your bag, man.
Man, I love monetary sovereignty.
All right.
There's something when you have your own money.
There is. Yeah, but do you know what? I don't think a lot of people really, truly understand money. Like, genuinely. I think most people, like I did, just think of money as something that goes into my bank every month, and then I have a credit card or a debit card, and I spend it, and at the end of the month, there's none left, and we move on to the next month. But people don't really think about money enough until sometimes, like, it's too late. Like, I'm 40, and I've only just started to realize, how much I should think about money. Why is that? What's going on?
Well, one, I think that we just don't get educated on that. Financial knowledge and education in general is sorely lacking. You would think this stuff would be taught in middle school or even high school. It's a basic life skill, and yet it's not taught at all. And that's just basic stuff, like balancing a checkbook, doing a budget, saving, learning what an interest rate is, what insurance is. Just some of these basic life skills that people should have. But, another part is, I went to write a paper on the history of money and currency in American law, a graduate level paper in law school. And I started researching this topic, and there just was not much there. And I think a lot of the reason for that is the economics profession, which is really filled with just a bunch of political dogmatists, not actual scientists. Just like we had a bunch of political dogmatists that said that the sun revolved around the earth because that's what the establishment wanted them to say. We have the same thing in the economics profession, basically to justify and rationalize and give ideological support to a monetary system that is fundamentally unconstitutional in the U.S., but also just an egregious violation of human rights. It enables confiscation through inflation, which is a form of taxation without representation, without due process of law. It erodes the political checks and balances with the power of the purse because the politicians can just print and print and print. And even worse, we try to uphold this concept of central bank independence as if we want this highly political entity that enables monetary elites to manage the lives of millions of people through interest rates and monetary policy. And we don't want that to be political. We want them to be independent and insulated from the political process. So we, create this gigantic moat where Federal Reserve Board governors and board members are elected like every 7 years, and not elected, they're appointed, and it just insulates it so much from the political process, and yet enables this type of monetary repression that happens, and is able to dictate the choices of millions and hundreds of millions of people. And people just don't understand that this is happening because, one, they don't understand the difference between money and currency. They don't understand the role of sound money as essential checks and balances in the political machinery. And a lot of them, they just don't claim their monetary sovereignty now that we have the ability to do that. nor do most people even manage their financial affairs in a prudent way anyways. They get themselves in debt. It's just crazy because, if you think about it, like the way we spend and allocate our money and our resources shows what we really value and desire. And it's like, man, why are people choosing some of the things they're choosing?
Well, that's why Bitcoin is so interesting, right? Because you can make some mistakes. I've wasted Bitcoin now, and every time I spend Bitcoin, I really think about it. But I don't think about it with my money in my bank account. If I just want to go and buy something, I just spend it. But with Bitcoin, every time I'm like, do I really want to spend that?
Yeah, because like Bitcoin is a massive battlefield of economic war. Because we're able to now secure monetary sovereignty and these sound property rights. But also, the war is you against you. It's you against your future self, and it's this concept of time preference. Are you gonna when you don't have a sound tool like Bitcoin, the hardest money ever invented? It's easy to spend these like digits that are easily created just with Control P by the central bankers, right? But like Bitcoins are hard to make more of. Look at what's happened to the hash rate of the network. It's hard to make more Bitcoins. And then you're trading like current consumption versus future consumption or savings or things like this. And it starts to sting. It starts to sting because especially the longer you've been in Bitcoin, because you're like, oh man, like I really spent 25 Bitcoin on that.
Everyone's got a story, right? I think I've given away over the last year or 2 years. If I've genuinely looked at it, it'd be between 5 and 10 Bitcoin.
Oh my goodness!
But when you think about that now,
it's $100,000.
Yeah, it's $100,000. But at the time, it's like I'm making half a Bitcoin here. But then I've been given some back, actually. In fairness.
Oh, that's nice. But you do work too, and you help people.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's break this down for some people. What is the difference between money and currency?
Yeah. So this is a very fine point of distinction, and both Michael Maloney and I seem to be on the similar page with this. And I wrote about it in my book, The Great Credit Contraction. You can get it at creditcontraction.com. It's a free PDF download. Don't charge for it anymore or anything. Money. So I put it into 4 different groups. You've got currency, and then you've got money substitutes, and what I call illusions. So money is going to be an object or something that I don't really like the word intrinsic value because we have subjective value, but it's something that has value more because of its internal characteristics, as opposed to like a money substitute, which is a claim on the item or the asset that has value because of its intrinsic characteristics. And then we've got these things called illusions, like dollars, yen, euros, and these have value because of their external characteristics. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've got the market theory of money, Nick Szabo, shells, gold, silver, most saleable good, Menger, basically the Austrian school argument, and then regression theorem, and then we've got chartalism, which is the state theory of money, that this little piece of paper has value because like some guy in a costume says it does. And just philosophically, like economic philosophy, chartalism is a false, like it's just a false argument. Like things have value because individuals subjectively value them, not because somebody like puts a stamp on it and says it has value. And so like when we're looking at the money substitutes, like a silver certificate, and illusions, they can all function as currency. And so currency would be that item or asset or whatever that we're using in our day-to-day transactions. And it can be either money substitute, or illusions. But that would be the difference between money and illusions. And so with money, what I mean by these internal characteristics, like gold, for example, is limited in amount by chemical law. It's an atom, right, on the periodic table. And that's an internal characteristic of gold. Bitcoin is limited in amount by mathematics, in the consensus mechanism and the cryptography and all of this stuff. Just like gold are precious atoms, Bitcoins are precious numbers, these private keys. So Bitcoins are limited in amount by their internal characteristics. Illusions, on the other hand, they're limited in amount by external characteristics, things like counterfeiting laws or whatever that gets related to that. So that's how I kind of distinguish between money substitutes, and illusions, how all of them can be currency. And so then, that opens more cans of worms as you go further down, because like in accounting, you've got different parts of the balance sheet, like cash. You got short-term assets, long-term assets. You got cash, marketable securities, stuff like this. But like when I look at the term cash, I want an asset which is not subject to another counterparty's risk, financial ability, something that can't become worthless, something that's safe, highly liquid. These are the types of characteristics I look at when defining cash, and because cash needs to be that risk-free asset. Like, what is the asset with the lowest risk profile that's also highly liquid? And that's what I define as cash. And then as you move out from that you can move into cash-like instruments. So, is gold cash? Is Bitcoin cash? Or is the US dollar cash? And for most corporations and people, they're using as the numeraire or the presentation currency under IAS 1, because you have to present your financial statements in a unit of account, they're using as cash an illusion that can become worthless. I mean, look at Zimbabwe dollars. I mean, There's nothing that like dollars can become worthless, euros can become worthless. Now, are they going to become worthless tomorrow? Probably not. But I look at those as a cash-like instrument, but I want to measure my financial performance using a much more solid form of cash. Actually, and so I use gold and I use Bitcoin for my numeraire.
It was interesting because I've never seen anyone do this like you did. So when we were talking with Pomp, we were talking about various things, and you were pricing everything in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I've never been with somebody who's done that on every single item they were pricing. And I've only ever heard you do that.
Yeah, so I actually price everything. Well, I mean, I'm not pricing like gallons of gas when I'm filling up my car.
No, but
right?
with business.
But yeah, I mean, for business, I'm definitely looking at like Bitcoin as my risk-free rate or my risk-free asset. And so am I going to have a return on investment in Bitcoin, right? But I actually keep my financial statements in Bitcoin, gold, and US dollars. So I'm actually like every month, I'm like, hey, did my net worth go up measured in Bitcoin? Did it go up measured in gold? Did it go up measured in USD? And then I'm trying to manage having it go up in all three of those at the same time if I can, right? I mean, it's hard because Bitcoin's so volatile, but I at least want my net worth going up measured in gold for sure.
So I'm going to come back to gold, but so one of the things I've been thinking about, if the dollar does depreciate so significantly that we go through a hyper-Bitcoinization, we could get to the point where the value of Bitcoin in dollars just kind of gets out of hand, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could.
And is that the point where you think people will stop thinking of the dollar as a unit account, and then Bitcoin will just become the unit of account, and you just forget it?
I mean, that's the multi-trillion-dollar question. Like, what is the risk-free asset? Because you take your risk-free asset and then you start using that to do your economic calculation for everything around it. So, I mean, you made a 12% return by investing in some piece of real estate. Like, should I give you props or should you just hodl Bitcoin? Right? Mm-hmm. And if you're measuring if you have your financial statements in Bitcoin and in gold and in dollars, you have to become a much better capital allocator in order to like actually be successful at having a return on investment. Yeah, so when we're doing all of our calculations, like internal rates of return, return on investment, initial weighted average cost of capital, all of these different ratios that we need to calculate, like acid test ratios and for our liquidity, all of these types of things, debt to equity ratios, I'm calculating with these three different metrics, right? And so in some cases, I take on different types of debt, whether it's US dollar denominated debt or yen denominated debt, because if you can, where it's going to get really crazy is when we start having like a Bitcoin fiat currency carry trade, especially with negative interest.
What does that mean?
Well, you can borrow, like Denmark, for example, they have negative interest rate mortgages now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy when you think about it. Okay, so I'm going to borrow 100,000 euros. I'm going to pay back 99,000 euros. And then I'm going to take the 100,000 euros and I'm going to buy Bitcoin and then get a yield on Bitcoin somehow, whether it's selling covered calls that are far out of the money, or whether it's like, one of these interest generating opportunities, which, who knows whether they're Ponzi scams or not. You really have to be careful assessing risk and stuff. But that, like the carry trade, that's where you borrow in a lower interest rate currency and invest in a higher yielding asset or currency. So people would borrow yen and buy dollars, and so they have a very low interest rate on the yen, and they have a higher interest rate on the dollars. And then you're betting that like the capital appreciation or change between the two is going to be in your favor.
But do you believe or have you kind of like thought through an actual hyper-Bitcoinization?
Yeah, but I don't really think that's how it's going to happen.
What do you think is going to happen? It's just going to be
well, it's Bitcoin's like a mirror that you get to see everybody's cognitive dissonance and bias appear, right? And so it happens one by one. The monetary revolution, people claiming their monetary sovereignty, and so I think it's going to be largely gradual. It's going to happen in different waves, be based on the halving and the price appreciations and stuff like that. But Bitcoin's been around over a decade, and there are still people that they've heard about it, but they haven't bought any. I had a friend, he talked all about how he was investing in Bitcoin and buying it and everything, and come to find out he hadn't actually bought any Bitcoin. He just wanted to look cool, like he'd been buying it.
Well, look, I'm
worked like some private equity group,
I'm the Bitcoin guy on Facebook amongst my circle of friends, obviously and clearly, and I talk about it all the time. And I don't just post up my podcast. I just drop little bits in there. I might drop in an article about negative interest rates, and so you just need to be aware of this. And I think maybe 10 have bought Bitcoin at one time or another, and I think one really is into it. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it takes people a while to hone in on this, but
I think they have to make some money off it realistically.
Yeah, that's this first network effect of speculation. That's a strong one, man. It built San Francisco from nothing. 800 people, you discovered gold. Now it's one of the greatest poop-covered cities in the world. But maybe they'll get that fixed one of these days. And then it would be, San Francisco just has so much potential, if they'd actually clean stuff up. But speculation is just such a strong network effect. And once people start making money on Bitcoin and the money, the way the money impacts people's emotions and feelings and everything, it just becomes very strong, and people make money or lose money on Bitcoin, but that kind of hooks a lot of people, right? Yeah. And then they stay for the monetary sovereignty because, you know what it's like when you're a kid and oh, can I take the car out? But when you get your own car, now
changes the ball game.
Stuff just changed, when you have your own money, stuff changes.
Yeah.
So, people might come for the price appreciation and stuff, but then, they're going to be shifting time and attention away from Game of Thrones or whatever they're otherwise dinking around with, and they're going to be listening to podcasts and stuff like that, and then they're going to get turned into like Bitcoin monsters.
Well, for me,
stacking
it's,
sats.
For me, it's I'm thinking, right, I've been divorced, so I lost 70% of my net worth with that, and then my company failed afterwards.
Oh no!
So I went from very comfortable position, good projections, a company that was worth 7 figures, to I nearly lost my house, and then I got into Bitcoin and did well, then screwed it up. But now I've got this kind of like time horizon where I think in terms of halvenings, but I'm thinking 20 years time, right? I don't want to be working. I mean, maybe this won't be a job and
You're doing it for fun.
Yeah. But I'm like 20 years time, right? I don't want to sell any of my Bitcoin for like 20 years because I'm thinking in 20 years, that could be my retirement. But I did come for the appreciation at first. That flip's happened now where I'm thinking about in terms of saving and protecting my financial future. And the monetary sovereignty has also become part of that. And it's again, for me, that's something quite new because I was never a gold bug. I've never owned or bought any gold, right? Bitcoin is the first time I've had my own kind of like real asset that means something to me. Are you still a gold bug?
Oh yeah, I love gold, man.
What do you make of all like the gold v Bitcoin arguments? It seems to me like I think people need to accept both are going to exist.
Well, I think there's a lot more to gold than just the money part of it. I mean, gold is a huge like meme in humanity, right? In history. And you go over to India, the masters of the mind, right? And you get, gold is very prominent over there. Like you get bowls and spoons.
Well, they wear it as well, right?
They wear it, like you eat out of the gold, and you buy the gold not to make any money on it. In fact, you never ever sell the gold, and you hand it down through the generations. And so the gold becomes a tool that can help focus the mind.
But it's a store of wealth, it's jewelry as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's why they and they give the dowries and stuff with the jewelry and everything. But really, like they're using the gold as a tool to focus the mind. And so, I think we can do a similar type of thing with Bitcoin, because there's an aspect of gold, like, it's just raw power. I don't know if you've ever held gold in your hand.
I've held it in India. Well, I've been to one of those amazing, huge.
Yeah, but how much? Like a little 1 ounce.
Probably actually didn't have it cupped like a bowl, like you said. I just went in and held some jewelry.
Yeah, like put a couple $100,000 worth of gold in your hand.
Yeah,
like see how that feels.
Right.
Okay. Like it's like pure power.
Yeah. Okay.
And so there's an aspect of like gold that helps focus and discipline the mind, and sound money does that. And that is one thing, because Bitcoin is not corporeal. So you're not going to get the same type of sensory experience with Bitcoin that you can get with gold in terms of like focusing the mind, using the senses. And I think there's an aspect of gold that it acts like a multiplier, like a force multiplier or a power amplifier on like energy that you're putting into it. And so, I like gold. Like gold's freaking cool because you can take gold and you can amplify power or energy through it to then accomplish more things in like what you're trying to do.
But it's also losing value against Bitcoin.
Yeah, everything is. And that's the $1 trillion question. Like, what's the new risk-free asset from earlier in the discussion?
Yeah.
But you're not acquiring the gold because of solely for the monetary benefit that you would get from it. You're acquiring the gold for the mental or the emotional power that you're able to exercise with it.
But that doesn't happen for everyone, right? That's clearly something that, because you've been around gold a long time, you've traded it, you understand it, you had a website about it, right?
Yeah, but I think there might be something in human DNA. Gold's freaking big. It's
gold's
a big
in us
meme
as well, right?
Yeah, well, it's probably like tiny little amounts, but we're moving more into the realm of the mind and our emotions and how we're crafting our experience of this physical reality in this discussion about gold and like the way we can use it.
But you prefer Bitcoin.
For what? Right?
I guess you prefer Bitcoin for returns. I guess that's the Bitcoin's your brain, gold's your heart.
Well, gold, like I've found that my net worth, like the more gold that I'm able to acquire, the bigger my net worth seems to be able to become. And so like, because I mean, I think everybody should have a meditation practice, right? Like you need to be, like you want to become a hodler of last resort. Like you think that's easy? Like getting whipped around on all your emotions? Like can you discipline? Can you interact with the energy that comes from money and the Bitcoin bull and bear? Like, are you going to get shaken out of your position? Because there are a lot of people like, oh, I would have bought Bitcoin at whatever price. Yeah, but you would have sold it too, right?
Yeah.
But you can use, like, I've found that you can use gold to discipline your mind and your emotions, right? And that's really, like, if you're not really going to be successful financially. I mean, sure, there are some unusual, abnormal cases, but by and large, if you want to become financially successful, you need to be able to have you need to be in order. Like your mind and your heart and your emotions and stuff, that all needs to be in order. And gold can be a very good tool to help in disciplining those things.
How though? Explain to me how.
Well, one, it helps change time preference. Two,
right, okay.
Like it's a very, and humanity's used it for millennia to change time preference and use as an instrument to trade between the current self and the future self, disciplining the current self, like not just eating everything in sight, saving for the future. All of these types of things made possible because of an instrument like gold that we've used for monetary exchange and economic calculation. So, I mean, it's just been built into the human psyche for millennia. I mean, it's such a huge meme in that sense.
Next up, I talked to Trace more about Bitcoin and gold. But before that, I do have a message from my show sponsors. And this week, I've got to welcome my new sponsor, Wire. And a big thanks to my buddy, Michael Dunworth, for sponsoring the show. So whether you are a solo developer or a large team, if you are looking to simplify user onboarding and offer an easy, fast way to purchase Bitcoin, then you really need to talk to the team over at Wire. Since 2013, Wire's focused on taking care of the heavy lifting in terms of compliance, payments, and liquidity so you can focus on building your core offering. Your idea could be the next killer app, so don't let the regulators kill it. Let Wire handle all the heavy lifting for you. To find out more, you can reach out to Wire or create a developer account at sendwire.com, which is sendwyre.com. Note that Wire is spelled W-Y-R-E. So again, that's sendwire.com, which is sendwyre.com. Also, today's show is brought to you by my friends Dropbit. And I told you, they've got some updates coming. Somebody figured it out. Somebody on Twitter figured it out, one of them. So anyway, I'm not going to tell you about it yet because they're going to give me a massive kick up the ass if I do. But hopefully we're going to be announcing these things soon because I'm heading out to Ohio in 10 days. I'm going to be out there with the team, Dropbit at their event. I'll be giving them a push to get these announcements out. But if you haven't got Dropbit yet, why not? Come on, I've been telling you about this for ages. It's the only Bitcoin wallet I use. For me, it's the best Bitcoin wallet on the market. I love all their cool features, which makes them like a Venmo for Bitcoin. Yes, you've got all the normal features for pasting addresses and using QR codes, but the cool thing about Dropbit is that you can text and tweet Bitcoin to people. Available for the iPhone and Android. If you want to try it out, head over to dropbit.app, which is DROPBIT.app. And lastly, as I mentioned, I'm going to be heading out to CIS in Los Angeles on October the 15th. I'm going to be recording a couple of live shows with Tim Draper and Travis Kling, so that's going to be pretty cool. And the organizers of CIS, Joseph and Alon of GHV, just launched a campaign to give everyone free tickets to their conference. They are on a tear to spread mass adoption of Bitcoin and are literally paying you to get started. It's going to be huge. Head over to cis.la/WBD to find out how you can get a free ticket for their event. So
So I need to buy some gold. My first gold purchase.
Well, I mean, you
Get a little
like you can do whatever you want to do, but I mean, like you look at your own mind and your own thoughts and your own emotions and stuff like that. Like, are you as disciplined and ordered as you want to be?
Nope.
Or do you want to become more ordered and more disciplined?
Of course, yeah.
You know, and okay, you want to become more ordered and disciplined? Like, you know, I find gold to be a very useful tool to be able to accomplish that type of stuff.
And gold's also hard money, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just-
I mean, it's scarce, limited in amount. It's a physical object, like an atom.
It's not as hard as Bitcoin.
Well, that's true. Stock to flow. Well, currently stock to flow is better on gold, but you know, halving's going to happen very soon, and then Bitcoin's going to overtake it in that regard. But you know, there's other aspects to gold, like you can't ever really destroy gold, and even if you dissolve it, it can always be put back together. So I mean, there's just so much that we can learn from gold, and so much it has to be able to teach us in the realm of the mind, because I mean, the money and trading and like all this stuff, like it's really more of an internal battle of the mind than it is an external battle. But you know, if you can't even discipline yourself, like guess what? You're going to get disciplined by someone else, and the way they're going to do it is they're going to like get you in debt, and then they're going to make you like do whatever they want you to do, what they want you to do, because your borrower is the servant to the lender. But the sweat of the sun, you know, gold, the ancient metal of kings. I mean, that's been a tool for people to claim their monetary sovereignty for millennia. So, I mean, I like it for some of these more intangible reasons, you know, and it's subjective value theory. You know, we like everybody's going to be valuing different things different ways. But yeah, I mean, I like gold for those reasons, you know. But in terms of like strict ROI and stuff like that, it's really hard to compete with Bitcoin. But you know, when the Mayer, and you can use the Mayer multiple, for example. You can use the Mayer multiple on the Bitcoin gold ratio, and you know, when that ratio gets out of sync, you know, trade some Bitcoins for some more gold, and you know, then you can pet your gold, you know, and like you can use it. Like you will find that your financial situation and just your overall mental and emotional landscape will do a lot better if you are like petting your physical gold instead of watching some stupid thing on the internet, you know, cat videos or like Game of Thrones or whatever, you know, cultivating your mind and your mental discipline and stuff like that. And that's going to feed out into all the aspects of your life.
Where's your ill discipline?
In what do you mean?
In life. Where's your weakness?
Weakness.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, like I think you got to have a good relationship with yourself, man. Yeah. And like one of the ways I like have a good relationship with myself is ice cream. You know, I mean, we got a lot of this like we're only going to eat meat or whatever. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like we had some awesome steaks here in Wyoming, like good steaks. But I mean, I still eat ice cream, man. Like, cause I get a lot of pleasure out of eating ice cream.
That's your thing, right?
And so, well,
Ben and Jerry's?
No. Tillamook, Haagen-Dazs, like the good stuff, the really, really good stuff, you know? And I mean, when you don't have a good relationship with yourself, I mean, it's just going to feed out into everything. Cause like, I kind of look at the human experience. We got health, wealth, experiences, and relationships. And people, you know, they just get things kind of out of order and out of whack. I mean, I had a friend, you know, spent 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week in the gym for 10 years, you know, like a human protein shake, only ate white rice and chicken. I mean, yeah, like in great physical condition, but his mind was not in very good physical condition. And, you know, and so he like had all types of anxiety and like, you know, that's screwing up the nerves, and like next thing you know, like he's got TMJ in the jaw, and then the doctors have to break his jaw in 2 places and wire his mouth shut in order to fix the TMJ. Shit. And it is all because he didn't have a good relationship with himself.
Right.
You know, like why aren't you eating some ice cream? Like treating yourself good, you know? But he goes and beats himself up in the gym 90 minutes a day, six days a week, and then rewards himself by eating a super bland like diet of rice and chicken. not a good relationship with himself.
Those things that you split up, I reckon I put majority in experiences. I constantly fill my time with experiences, and my health, to some extent, and certainly my wealth, suffer. I was talking to Pomp about it last night. He was saying, like, if Bitcoin goes up and then you can invest something else. Like, if it goes up, I'm just going to go on holidays. I'm going to buy a car. Like, I put everything into experiences. I've got such low time profile.
Well, we only live once,
Exactly.
right? Like,
we don't know how
supposedly
how many days are left.
Yeah, we don't know how many days are left. There are a lot of people, man. They die with a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah,
and they wish they'd spent a little bit more time with the kids when they were growing up instead of in the office. Because man, life comes at you fast. Like, you have to find joy in the journey now. Mm-hmm. Like, because if you're only living for tomorrow, you're going to pile up a lot of yesterdays. And so, it definitely is a balance. And I mean, how much can you enjoy life if you're like in constant chronic pain, like if your health is out of whack, right? So that's why I put health as like the bottom foundation. Wealth is next on there, because when you have monetary sovereignty and you're not in debt, serving to the lender, and you have excess reserve, like excess savings and all this type of stuff. Like, now you can do a bunch of experiences, have a bunch of fun, but it's not where you go; it's who you go with. So that's why, you got experiences, but then above that, you've got relationships. And of course, the pinnacle of relationships are going to be, husband and wife, parents and children, and then you kind of branch out from there in terms of happiness and being able to kind of find all that stuff. So it's, a lot of people just get it out of order. They get it out of whack, or they think like,
why's so out of whack?
If I'm only a human protein shake, like, this girl will like me, right? And it's like, no, like, you got to get yourself in order. Got to get your mind in order. Got to get your heart in order. Then when that's in order, like, you're gonna naturally kind of gravitate towards someone else who's in order. Then you guys are going to, like, go down the road and have a super happy relationship together, doing, like, great experiences. And yeah, so I mean, like, we don't, like, why do we want to have a healthy body? I mean, well, we want to have a healthy body so we can have a healthy functioning mind, and we want to have a healthy functioning mind. Why? Like, what's the purpose? I would argue that if your purpose is so that you can be of helpfulness and service and help other people, as opposed to focused on your own selfishness. I mean, you got to put yourself first. You got to take care of yourself first. So don't exclude that, but you're taking care of yourself so that you can be a better help to other people. That's going to help you find the happiness in life. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly chasing little Mario coins, thinking that's going to make you happy. I mean, go look at a bunch of people in New York. They freaking work like 110 hours a week.
Yep.
Like,
stressed out,
being a spreadsheet monkey, like, for real, like that's the experience you want.
Yeah, but
like,
a lot of people do careers they don't really like, chasing money.
Well, yeah, but that's because their priorities are out of whack, right? It's not that loving money is the problem. It's when you love money more than you love helping or being of service to other people, right? Like, you just got to get stuff in the right order. Like, if loving yourself is up in your head as opposed to in your feet, or loving money is in your head as opposed to in your torso, that you're getting stuff out of whack.
Yeah, but you've also got to try and find something you really genuinely enjoy doing, or get away from having a job. I think a job is something you don't want to do. It's like, so this isn't a job.
Well, because you're
fun.
Finding more of a passion and you got more of a purpose. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I think jobs or different tasks, like, it's great for some people. Like, last night at dinner, I was talking with our general counsel at Kraken, because she was a U.S. attorney in Pennsylvania, first female U.S. attorney in Pennsylvania in, like, ever, 200 years, right? And I was just like, man, in another life, I think I just would have loved being involved in the criminal law in some way, like either a defense attorney or a prosecutor. Like, I mean, I loved those classes in law school. I think I would have found a ton of passion, like, in that area. it just wasn't what I felt my calling inside was, like, because all of us, like, we speak to ourselves in like this very subtle, very quiet voice, but we tell ourselves what we need to do. But the problem is that we lie to ourselves a bunch. We lie to ourselves thinking like, oh, like if you become a human protein shake, then you'll like find happiness, or like whatever the lie is. Oh, if I get a bunch of money, then I'll be happy. It's like, no, man, like you can enjoy a sunset just as much as Bill Gates.
Yep.
Like some of the happiest people in the world don't have any money.
But your career was seeded, I think, quite early on. I'm sure I've heard a story about something that your dad did. Did your dad?
Well, I wanted a bicycle, and my dad was like, how are you going to buy it?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I've always kind of had the entrepreneurial spirit in there. But, I mean, even like my work in Bitcoin-related stuff, I mean, for me, it's never been about making money. It's been about like taking the beachhead of monetary sovereignty. I mean, this is the great battle of our time. Mm-hmm. We're on a planet that's chained by central banks that engage in monetary repression, and they have all the money and guns in the world. And it's like, how are you going to win this battle? You're going to go to fight against this, and all you got is math on your side? I mean, that's freaking pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like bring it on, I mean, because like everybody loves the fastest runner. They love the highest jumper. Like people might not like it, but I mean, Americans, they love the sting of battle. It's just kind of built into our DNA from like running the British off with the Revolutionary War and
I love being reminded
and the Constitution.
Of that.
Oh yeah, now you're gonna have to try and run us off, right?
Yeah, but like, you know what? I still come here and have you've still got terrible tea. The tea here is fucking terrible. Like, how have you not? Like, it's almost like is this like are you trying to prove a point? The tea is fucking terrible, but it's not hard to get.
Well, fiat money, fiat food, fiat tea, man.
Fiat tea.
like it's a real problem. Fiat art, but it, America's definitely got this like aspect of self-determination to it, and where, I feel that each of us, we have that little voice inside. It tells us what we should do. We just lie to ourselves. Don't do it. Then we get wrecked, like our lives become just a disaster. But America's provided this environment where people can become their very best self because they have so much opportunity and so much choice compared to other places. Look at Hong Kong, look at China. Like, really? Like, you want to go outside the mold there? It's going to be a little painful.
Wow, yeah. I mean, especially up in the north of China now with the Uyghurs.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, they're putting Muslims in concentration camps in China.
Concentration camps.
And, I mean, America was founded on religious freedom. It was founded on this concept of like self-determination and freedom of speech and stuff like that. And Britain has a long history of freedom of speech, and like Isaac Newton and Cambridge and Oxford and like a lot of that stuff. So
yeah, but that's even being repressed in the UK.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm being sued for saying words right now, as you are perfectly aware.
Well, it's with like Craig, right? I think, or something.
But I'm saying
he's got himself wrecked. He owes 500,000 bitcoins that I bet money he's never had.
But just back to that. So. And that stuff in China actually is really, really scary. And it brings me on to another question, because one thing I was thinking about. So, say Bitcoin does continue to grow, say it leads to a separation of money and state, it weakens the US government.
Well, it's going to weaken governments in general.
Well, it's going to
have a hard time funding themselves.
But I would have thought, could the way China's policy towards Bitcoin, is that a defense of their government? And would that give China a huge amount of strength over the US? Is that a global risk?
No, I don't think so. Because like whichever society adopts the soundest, hardest money and has the freedom and ability to do that and is able to perform economic calculation to then allocate resources and generate wealth at a much faster rate and everything. China, they have too much bureaucracy. They're not able to really perform economic calculation, and so much of the wealth over there has been as a result of being able to just leech off of the productive capacity of the areas of the world that do have freedom. And I think Trump mentioned, like, since he took office, the change in net worth between China and the U.S. has been a $17 trillion delta. And it's just getting started. Like, the U.S. calling back all the capital that is, like, moved over to China.
So you actually support what Trump's been doing, right?
Well, he's doing stuff in favor of the U.S. And while the U.S. is not perfect, I mean, this is where I was born. Like, 10th great grandfather came over on the Mayflower. I had lots of family involved in the Constitutional Convention and signing the Declaration of Independence. So, I mean, it's just kind of my worldview from where I was born. And I think that, we have a lot more freedom and liberty here than other countries in the world. I mean, I've been in other countries where, I've not been able to have the type of freedom of speech and other things that I like to do that I have in the U.S. And so I like that we at least have the option in the U.S. to do things or not do things. Like other countries, you don't get the option. You go to the gulag.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, that's not cool.
Yeah, I've come to appreciate it more over here. I mean, we were talking about guns last night, and I've done a 180 on that. I'm not afraid to say it. I mean, I can't remember, it was a few months ago, the latest ever shooting. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Your gun laws are crazy. But I've come over here to Wyoming and I've spent time, I was out with Tyler last night and, we were chatting to a bunch of girls who they're all country girls. They live on the farm and, they're explaining the culture of, raising cattle, of weapons. And I kind of come to understand it, but I've come to understand when you're out somewhere like here, it's very different from New York and LA. And if you come to America and you visit New York and LA and then try and have an opinion on the gun laws, you really don't understand America. Right. Because actually, I don't think of New York and LA as real America anymore. I think that is maybe the bits of the British that is left over.
Well, there's definitely some aspect to that. I mean, just the being able to have a lot more land versus being all cramped together like a bunch of rats on top of each other that we have in the cities. And actually, if you take out a lot of the big metropolitan areas and look at much more rural America, the crime rates, and especially like gun crime rates, are lower than even Switzerland. Yep. So, America is actually a very, very safe place. I think we get a lot of stuff like, these mass shootings, and who knows what the real cause of those are or the real purpose of it is, that excites the public conscious or whatever and makes people go into a frenzy about guns or whatever. But America, by and large, is an extremely safe place in the world. And I think a lot of that's attributed to the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the rule of law, republic form of government, all of these types of things.
Yeah, I definitely also come to appreciate the federal versus state level law and the federal versus state level operation of the politicians. And, what it was being explained to me the other day is whereby actually you want to keep as much law at a state level and away from the central government because you want almost competition between states.
Oh, yeah. 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 I mean, well, we're descended from the British, right? I mean, my ancestors were from England and other parts of like Scandinavia and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we descend from the British common law. We have that in our tradition. We have a written constitution versus an unwritten one like the British have. But I mean, there are a lot of similarities. We have the House and the Senate. You guys have the House of Lords and the House of Commons. So we have a lot of similarities, but yeah, the states being sovereign and the federal government, that was actually, we picked that up from the Native Americans, because that's how the tribes governed and then joined into federations. And so like we actually picked that up from them and when we were like deciding how to form the federal government back under the Articles of Confederation. Yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting experiment in political democracy. Yeah. But I mean, America is a gigantic powerhouse on the world stage as a result of this. Yep. And an economic powerhouse, the likes of which the world has never seen. And I mean, what made America great it was sound money, coupled with like this principle of limited government. And what's going to make America great again? It's going to be Bitcoin and sound money and freedom of speech and returning to this more limited form of government. So I find it very ironic that Trump kind of attacks Bitcoin, because it's like, nah, man, like
You need to get
Bitcoin's what's going to make America great again and keep America great.
But it could also, I mean, it can make any nation great now, really.
Well, yeah,
everyone has a chance. Like,
yeah, I mean, who's going to pick up this weapon and wield it, right, to perform more accurate economic calculation and have tremendous amounts of wealth accrue to it from people who are in the other nations that are, buying and storing into Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, having these property rights in nations where you don't have it, Africa, South America, stuff like that. I mean, Bitcoin is, man, it's just such a cheaper form of acquiring property rights than anything else we've ever found.
How do you think it's going to play out with the kind of state of the macro global economy right now? Because obviously there's a lot of things to be concerned about. I mean, you were talking about the repo market the other day. Was it 200 billion that's been pumped in?
Well, I mean, it's an overnight repo market, and it started at like 53 billion and then 75, but it was oversubscribed. But it's not cumulative, right?
What is the repo market, though? So I don't actually understand.
It's overnight cash. Okay. So banks get themselves leverage, and they have to borrow money overnight to not be insolvent. And some of these banks are paying 10% for overnight cash, which is crazy. And then, so the feds opened up and helped, but then that gets oversubscribed. So there was 75 billion, but 80 billion subscribed for it. So that means some bank needed $5 billion of overnight cash and didn't get it.
Right.
Like, why the banks are running out of cash, that's another really big question. And then
why do you think they are?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of, well, one is like some of the banks aren't out of cash, but they aren't lending to the banks that need it. So that's a big question. Like, why don't they trust these other banks to just lend them money for one day, right? I think the tariffs might be playing a role into this because that's changing how the cash flows. Maybe a bunch of cash went in for tax payments. That's what some of the articles said, like, oh, a lot of the corporations made a bunch of tax payments. Okay, maybe to some degree. I mean, the banks are always kind of a mismatch between demand deposits and longer term debt instruments, right? Mm-hmm. So they're always fraudulent. They always are insolvent if people demanded what they're legally entitled to with demand deposits, but like everybody doesn't make a run on the bank. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the cause might be, other than, people are they're just scared out there, legitimately, because why do you trust the valuation of any of these derivatives on other banks? They're overstating the value of the assets, they're understating the value of the liabilities. Everybody's playing the same game. All the balance sheets are just waiting to get massive holes blown in them from these financial weapons of mass destruction with the derivatives. When the derivatives begin to fail, they rely on the counterparty, the financial ability to pay. And when they're not able to do that, then the nominal becomes the notional. And that just like disintegrates balance sheets across the board. So I think 2007, 2008, 2009, the fundamental structural problems didn't get fixed. And, maybe it's just kind of rearing its head again.
Feels like it'd be a lot more ugly this time.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of estimated it's going to be anywhere like 8 to 13 times larger than it was in 08, which, like gold and Bitcoin, equity-based, nobody's liability, proof of keys, started proof of keys, proofofkeys.com. January 3rd, we withdraw all of our Bitcoin from any third party.
Did I tell you because of that I found half a Bitcoin?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I went through all my exchanges when I used to trade the shitcoins, and there was one exchange called Cryptopia.
Oh, yeah.
There was half a Bitcoin on there that I didn't know about, right? Anyway, I took it off. It was only like a week, 2 weeks later, they got hacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you saved me half a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Cheers,
well,
man.
And several people have mentioned that. Part of it is just good hygiene. Let's just every year, let's just go and get all of our Bitcoins off any third-party services. But the implications of that are, let's have a global coordinated bank run on the asset that's strictly limited in amount and can be instantly verified via a distributed consensus blockchain, right? And so, if banks are having trouble with having cash, overnight cash, when that asset can be printed out of nothing, imagine what type of trouble these institutions could run into if they actually have to deliver Bitcoin and you can't print that out of nothing. There's no lender of last resort. They're hodlers of last resort. So,
do you think the exchanges should be doing proof of reserves?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, and we have stuff like that built into the Wyoming legislation for the special purpose depository banks. It's just it's a lot of fly by night, like scrappy little startups.
So what do you make of these interest accounts then? Because I go both ways with them. Like, obviously, one of mine's a client. I've used them.
Yeah.
I've made interest. It's really quite cool. But at the same time, there's this split view. Some people are saying it's natural to have financial products within Bitcoin. It's going to happen. And then other people are saying you're not managing your private keys.
Well, when you hold your own keys and you're performing your own network consensus by running a full node, that I would say is cash. And you're in cash, and that's risk-free, the risk-free rate, right? And if you want to move out from that and take on more risk and get compensated for it, that's an economic calculation to perform. Mm-hmm. And, if you make that economic calculation judgment call and decide like, it's good to pick up, I don't know, what one do you use, BlockFi or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and I want that 6% or whatever it is, everybody gets to make those decisions. And there is six network effect is financialization. I mean, we're going to get, like, I trade puts and calls on LedgerX, fully collateralized Bitcoin options. It's great. I sell covered calls at like 20K strikes. They expire worthless. I keep the premium. Like, I feel very comfortable with LedgerX. They're CFTC regulated. They're CEF, DCO. I get audited financial statements as a clearing member.
I had Juthika on.
What's that?
I had Juthika on.
Oh, yeah. That was a great interview, by the way. I listened to it. Great product, but I'm taking risk. I'm not taking counterparty risk because the Bitcoins are not on LedgerX's balance sheet. They're actually segregated in a footnote. But I am taking performance risk, whether LedgerX is going to properly keep the contract. Are they going to secure my Bitcoins well? And are they going to send them to me when I make the withdrawal?
Yeah.
Which they did.
Yeah.
I did proof of keys on January 3rd, and they sent a lot of Bitcoin to me. Like, it was great. So,
are you going to run the campaign again? January 3rd?
Every year.
Every year.
Because one, we just need to have good hygiene. Otherwise, we're going to leave half a Bitcoin on whatever exchange gets hacked, right? Like, I mean, and you might forget about it.
I just forgot about it. I didn't know it was there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just a good practice to do in terms of like your hygiene of like knowing where your money's at. Half a Bitcoin's like $5,000. I mean, you leave half a Bitcoin on there, and you come back a year later, and Bitcoin ran from 10 grand to 100 grand. Like, now it's 50 grand, like in that Cryptopia account, right? And then also people get to learn a lot of lessons because when you submit that withdrawal request, I mean, supposedly those Bitcoins are yours. Are they going to send them or not? And you're going to learn a very important lesson because they're either going to immediately send you your Bitcoin or you're just going to wait.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a race now. You say Jan 3rd, but if there's a problem, you can think, well, I'm going to do my Jan 2nd just in case.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there's some of that and everything. And I mean, January 3rd is just kind of a
important day.
Rallying flag. I mean, just so people, I mean, why not? It's fun, and we all get to do something together. But yeah, I mean, there could be further firms that get decapitated, like Quadriga CX.
Well, that's still very weird.
Well, I mean, I did proof of keys on December 9th. A week later, he meets with his attorney, sets up the estate plan. A week after that, he dies in India in a hospital, and then his wife takes his body back to the hotel. Like, what?
Dude, where is
I mean, it's just really weird, right?
Yeah, look, I think that guy's somewhere.
And then Quadriga CX fails, and people lose $250 million, which they actually had lost the $250 million earlier. It didn't get marked to market until after proof of keys.
How did they lose it? Do we know?
Oh, they probably stole it all. And I think they lost some sending Ether to the wrong contract, and then the price of Ether went up, and so they're playing that like catch up game. And these things don't really get discovered until you have a significant amount of people saying, "Hey, just that Bitcoin that I own, like just send it all to this address right now." And you learn something very valuable because they either send it or they don't. And you're also going to learn a lot of stuff about your accounts with like withdrawal limits. You might have $50,000 worth of Bitcoin on Coinbase, and then you find out you can only withdraw $2,000 a day because that's the amount of verification you've had on your account, right? So, you can engage in this good hygiene practice of finding where all your Bitcoins are at and other crypto, preemptively getting your accounts verified to higher tiers or degrees so that you get higher withdrawal limits and all of this stuff. And then you get to actually go through the process of making the withdrawal and handling the Bitcoin. And then you can make a deposit. I think people underestimate how valuable it is to develop this human capital of just being able to move the Bitcoins around and like performing the validation with your own full node. These are just kind of basic skills, but you got to keep them sharp. If you don't keep your skills sharp, you might lose some of it. And so, like every year, we can just do this. And it also helps generate a bunch of discussion for, in the public space. And then think about the poor new people that come into the space.
Yeah.
So every year, we get to have this event, and like the new people coming into the space, like they get their initiation. They get to become a real Bitcoiner by participating in proof of keys and like demanding the Bitcoin into their wallet. They get an increased degree of confidence by actually going through the process and gaining these skills and proving that they can do it to themselves. There's really no downside to it, and there's only upside, for you as an individual in developing all those skills and abilities. And it also helps us test the systems for all of these companies, test their ability to manage hot wallets and warm wallets and cold wallets and moving the Bitcoins around. And it's better to have that, those fire drills
like
happen.
A detox.
Yeah, it's like a detox, or it's like a fire drill. It's good to practice your emergency procedures rather than like actually get into the emergency and then like you're doing it for the first time. It's a bad idea, So, so I think it's a great initiative that I started, and I hope we get a lot more uptake from, other media outlets like yourself and other podcasts and stuff. We'll just start beating the drum.
Hey, and just let me know, man. But look, we did it last.
Yeah.
Well, I supported
you did it
last
year. Yeah,
and but a lot of people did it, but they changed their Twitter handles.
Yeah. We added the keys and the dates and everything,
and it was worth. Like you proved it personally to me. I found half a Bitcoin that might, because I would never had a reason to go back into that account because I don't trade shitcoins anymore.
Right.
And there we go.
No, I know multiple people that significant amounts of money, anywhere from like 0.1 of a Bitcoin to several Bitcoin.
Wow.
So like,
how much is just out there that people have forgot about?
I think there's a lot, actually. I think there's a lot, and think what happens to that. It becomes unclaimed property, and then that service provider just like keeps it, right?
Well,
that's what happens.
Well, what point do they think?
After about 2 or 3 years. They just sweep it into their own account.
Yeah.
It's been dormant. They start charging account fees. Like there's one place, oh gosh, what was it? They were charging 10% per month in account fee.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because they don't want to deal with all these like dormant accounts, right? And so, we do this once a year. Like, might be finding some Bitcoin. It can't hurt. And you develop these skills, and we help all the new people that come into the space. So I think it's going to be much more fun this year, because last year, I put the tweet out on December 9th, the initial one, had 100,000 views in like 48 hours, the tweet did. And, I was a little worried. I was like, well, I hope I don't blow up the whole ecosystem. But if we do, like, it's everybody's fault that has paper Bitcoin instead of Bitcoin in their own wallet, right? And Andreas was actually pretty just scared that would happen. But you know what happened? Quadriga CX failed. Hit BTC, Bitfinex, Tether kind of had issues, small issues. And Coinbase, about 10 days after I put the tweet out, they decided to, quote, test their cold storage system. And so they moved 850,000 Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. So I think they're trying to calm the nerves, right? So who's actually probably fractionally reserved? Wouldn't surprise me if it's Coinbase.
Wow.
Maybe they've sold 2 or 3 million Bitcoin and they only have 850,000 of them that they actually have, right?
Damn, you're going to put the pressure on them in January then?
Well, if people actually do proof of keys,
All right, man. Well, listen, look.
I mean, why are we trusting? Why are we trusting? Don't trust, verify.
Yeah.
Like, it's very simple. Don't trust, verify. Tell them, send all my Bitcoin to this address. You're going to learn whether they're going to do it or not. And you're going to develop your own abilities. So, that's extremely valuable for you. And who knows, you might find Bitcoins that you otherwise forgot about.
Exactly. That's the important bit. So anyway, we've done really well here.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Proof of Keys is going to be great this year.
It's going to be brilliant. I can't wait for it. I think it's a really healthy exercise. But I would like to see more proof of reserves. I think it's only right. I worry for people that, I don't know, an exchange has a run on it and not everyone can get their Bitcoin out. Another Mt. Gox, it is, yeah. Well, I don't even leave anything on an exchange anymore.
Well, just be first,
Yeah.
Get in the lifeboat first. And what are you going to do? Like, you do it and we don't have an issue. Like, let's say no exchange fails this year.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
But you've developed your skill. You know how to get in the lifeboat now. You've actually done the drill.
Plus, each exchange know this is going to be coming every year.
Oh, yeah. Every year. It's going to be coming.
I mean, but I do it every day, proof of keys every day.
Right, yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But, it's just kind of fun. Let's have a celebration. Like, January 3rd, 2009, Satoshi gave us a tool of monetary sovereignty. Let's flex our muscles, like, once a year.
Are we going to have a halvening
that
celebration as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, we do that. Usually, I always seem to, I've gone to a halvening party like every year. So I'm sure we're going to have one this year.
I've never experienced one.
Oh, what? Newbie.
Yeah,
kind of green.
I kind of, when I screwed up in 2013, I just kind of ignored it for a few years, missed one and came back. So,
but it's fun. It's fun to have these community things, because, I mean, okay, yeah, we got our magic internet money, but it's experiences, relationships. It's fun.
Like dinner last night was fun.
Oh, it was a hoot.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, look, anything you want to leave at the end? Anything you want to tell anyone?
Yeah, I mean, proofofkeys.com, we have resources that help walk people through a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
My Twitter, @TraceMayer, and Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, www.bitcoin.can. I mean, those are kind of my 3 things. Otherwise, it's, claim your monetary sovereignty. Like, why are you going to be some spineless, gelatinous blob that just gets like that just gets like worked over by whoever like controls the keys to what you think are your assets? No, claim the keys. Like, put on your big boy and big girl pants and hold your own private keys. Like, it's like, flex those muscles.
All right, man. Well, listen, we'll do another show in probably December for Proof of Keys. We'll bang the drum again, and it's always great to have you on.
It's going to be a hoot. Thanks.
All right, how was that? Do you enjoy that with Trace? Feeling pretty bullish? I know the price has been pretty crazy recently. We've had a big drop down from where we're hanging around 10K. I think the backed volume has been pretty disappointing. I saw a note that it might be down to that. Who knows? I'm still bullish. I'm still on my 10-year cycle, not selling anything for 3 halvings. And it's always great to catch up with Trace. I do love spending time with him, and it was great to spend a few days with him up in Wyoming, hang out, talk Bitcoin, eat some steak. And I also loved how we got into how Bitcoin will perform in another economic downturn. This is something I've thought about quite a lot. I know other people do, and it's kind of uncharted territory for Bitcoin because the last massive downtime was the birth of Bitcoin. So if we do see another global recession, I think it'll be interesting to see how it performs. I'm not super confident that Bitcoin will perform as a safe asset yet. I don't see it performing the same way that gold will. I could see an exit from Bitcoin, but who knows? Let's see. But if you did enjoy this interview, and you haven't listened to the show I did with Trace, Caitlin, and Tyler last week, check that out. And also, you might enjoy the show I did with Raoul Powell. So you should go back and check that out. That was a monster, and we covered Bitcoin as a hedge in recession pretty thoroughly in that one too. Okay, if you've got any questions about the show, do reach out to me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Also, if you want to support the show, so many things you can do. If you listen to every week and you want to lend me a hand, please go and leave me a review. Go and click on the subscribe button. Go and check out my website, whatbitcoindid.com. There's a support section there that'll explain everything. Right. As I said in my intro, I'm preparing for the launch of Defiance on Sunday, October the 6th. Hopefully, if Apple approves it, it'll be out. All 3 launch shows will be ready. Also, as I said, I'm going to be heading back out to the States on October the 9th. I'm going to be heading to Ohio, Portland, San Francisco, LA, Austin, and New York. Loads and loads happening. Any questions, do reach out to me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.